So welcome to today's BINALOT Talks. I see a lot of new faces. For those who are new here, the BINALOT Talks started in 2003 as a way to regularize our weekly meetings where we discuss different research topics from people who have various backgrounds and want to talk about their research. So today we have Sir Dante Manipon, who will be talking about flakes. And so Dante is a PhD student here at UPSA, but he finished his master's here in 2017, and he is also a lecturer here. So today we'll have him in his BINALOT talk. So thank you, everyone. Dante.
Do I need that?
You have a mic.
Yeah, I have a mic. Okay. All right, good noon, everybody. Thank you so much, Gabby, for your wonderful introduction. But I thought I would introduce myself as well. So hello, I'm Dante, and I love stone tools. So why do I like stone tools? This is very important because this presentation is going to be about stone tools. I don't know, man. There's something about stone tools that brings out something very wild and primal inside of me. There's something about stone tools that are very action-packed. People think of them as like little pieces of rock, but when you actually try to do things with them, they come alive. And my life since studying stone tools has been one of adventure and discovery and excitement. No thanks to my good advisor here. Actually, my advisor, Mandy Mijares, is the one that encouraged me to study stone tools. And so, I never looked back. For example, these stone tools are really cool because they can help you make really cool things, like you can make a spear out of it, out of a broomstick. You can throw things, and it's all for research purposes. Basically, I had a lot of fun studying stone tools, but still contributing to science and knowledge. But on a more serious note, stone tools are very important because they are a window to our deep past, and they're some of the only ways, or one of the few ways, that we can really connect to our ancestors. Stone tools help humanity survive the ice ages, or the Pleistocene, and even beyond. So how to make a stone tool? How to make a simple stone tool? Basically, step 1, break rock. Step 2, repeat step 1. So basically, you take one rock and another rock and then you hit it. I'm not gonna hit it because matatalimsikan yung pizza. But that's what you do. So when you hit the rock, flake. So we need to know what a flake is in order to follow along with this talk. Okay, so these flakes, there are characteristics and there's an anatomy of a flake, but basically it's thin and it's sharp, and you can use it to cut things. So this is a simple flake, but you could also make it more complicated and flake the flake further. So here's an example of working a flake further into whatever shape you desire. So, do we all know what a flake is by now? All right, then we can proceed with the presentation proper. Yeah. So trash or treasure, little stone flakes at Ime Cave, slices of life from around 4,000 years ago. So these are illustrations of the little flakes found at a mysterious cave known as Ime Cave in Peñablanca, Northeastern Luzon. So the story is set around 4,000 years ago. 4,000 years ago, there were some farmers from Taiwan, and they sailed down, and they started arriving in the Philippines, and they brought pots. Just for context, other things were going around in Southeast Asia 4,000 years ago. In mainland Southeast Asia and in China, we have societies already using metal tools. And as mentioned before, in southern China and in Taiwan, we have these farmers, these Neolithic farmers, and they were spreading their culture and their language everywhere. To put it into more, if I'm not mistaken, other parts of the world, I think it's the Minoan civilization in ancient Greece. We have the pharaohs in Egypt. We have, I think, the Olmecs in the Americas. And Shang Dynasty in China. So a lot going on in the world, a lot of different technological levels. So these farmers started around the northern part of Luzon around 4,000 years ago. Okay, so there's the Philippines and there's northern Luzon, northeastern Luzon. So these maps were from my advisor. But the story of this talk is not about those farmers. It's about the foragers, the hunters and gatherers that lived here already for tens of thousands of years, that were here before the farmers arrived. Okay? So in Cagayan Valley, there are a network of caves, a bunch of caves, the Peñablanca caves. And so here we have a map of different cave sites. I know you can't see, it's blurry, but Ime Cave is right there, almost in the middle of this complicated network of caves. And in Ime Cave, we found a lot of little stone flakes. So I brought some examples of flakes. So yeah, a lot of these. Okay? And from the literature in Southeast Asia, these caves with a lot of these little stone flakes are usually interpreted as hunting campsites, like temporary stopovers during a hunting trip or when it's a rainy season. So hunters, yeah, they can hang out outside, they can build their lean-tos and little shelters, but when it starts to rain hard, really hard, then probably they would be encouraged to go up and seek shelter in the caves. And also, during the rainy season, that's when animals probably get fat from all the moisture and vegetation and things they can eat, and it's a good time to go hunting. So that's what was happening at Cagayan Valley in the Peñablanca cave sites around 4,000 years ago. Another cool thing, Fai, are you here? Fai? At around 3,000 to 500 years ago, so around that same time, there's been rock art discovered in some of those cave sites. A lot of cool things. So siguro you can paint a picture of hunter-gatherers roaming around this area, using the caves, hunting and making art in the cave sites at around that time period. Okay, so this is the story, this is the setting of the story that's gonna take place. But specifically, we're going to look at Ime Cave, which is the center, kind of like in the middle of all of these cave sites presented here in that map. Okay, so this is what Ime Cave looks like from the outside, from the entrance going in. It's pretty dark. It was excavated, it was discovered in 1977 and excavated in 2003 by Mandy, right? And Clyde? And this is their map of the original excavations. I added a scatter of lithic artifacts based on the coordinates of each lithic artifact larger than 3 cm. So you can see that one square has more lithic artifacts than the other square. That's probably where it was happening in terms of stone tools. Okay, other things found in the cave are animal bones, so bones of pig and deer. And by pig, we don't mean the domestic pig, not the kind of pig that you eat from Baliwag or what's another? Kapanmuks. Who knows that? Masarap doon. No. These pigs are the wild pigs, so wild boar, that are native to the area. Okay? Other things were found like plant remains and river shells. So plant remains like nuts and seeds. So already you can see a picture of these hunter-gatherers foraging for things, hunting things inside, and using this cave. Okay? And of course, as mentioned, a lot of little flakes. So the time period I'm concerned with is the preceramic layer, dated to about 3,900 to 3,690 years ago, or BP. So yeah, around 4,000 years ago. But it's preceramic, meaning the layer I'm concerned with is the time when, before the farmers started interacting with these hunter-gatherers as evidence inside the cave. Okay? So just at the threshold of when these hunter-gatherers and when these farmers started to interact with one another. So very exciting time period. Clash of cultures. I chose to study just a thin segment of a layer, spits 12 to 14, and this is the stratigraphic profile of one of the squares, the south wall. Oh, sorry, both squares, but combined, south wall. So when archaeologists dig, we dig in trenches, and we record the side profile as well, so we can understand how the layers are deposited, as well as the artifacts within them. Those are for my students who are here. And so I studied these, all of the lithic artifacts, all of the stone artifacts in these spits. Nothing too complicated. I just sorted them out by raw material, by grain and by color. Okay? You know the story of Cupid and Psyche? So, the goddess of love, Venus, got super jealous at Psyche's beauty. And so as punishment, Psyche had to take these grains of seed and sort them out by type. And that's what I did as punishment. Joke lang. So I was able to identify 6 types of raw material stones, or 6 types of rock. Okay, we have andesite, grayish chert, basalt, blackish kind of chert, a brownish kind of chert, or reddish kind of chert, jasper. Red jasper. But I differentiated the brown and the red because in that area, clearly the brown is super different from the red, even though you might call them jasper. So you know this in Palawan too, the brown types seem to be more homogeneous. Yeah, sure. So here you can see a picture of the technicolor spectrum of different kinds of rocks, all formed into little flakes. Okay? So something as simple as that, just sorting them out by color and grain, coarseness, you can already start to see some patterns. So here we have some predominant raw materials, or the kind of rocks that were abundant there at Imi Cave. On the other hand, we also have the rare types. Okay, so these colorful chert types, they're rare. And these black and gray types, they're abundant. Okay? So I proceeded to not only sort them out by color, I weighed each of them. Okay, because I wanted to see the relationship when you weigh them, not just by number, by frequency, not just counting them, but actually weighing them. What are they like altogether? Okay, because it can be confusing. Like a bunch of these little flakes, you can have like 10 of these little flakes. See these little flakes? You can have like 10 of these. Ooh, ang dami, 10. But when you weigh them, they don't even weigh half as much as this one big flake. Okay, so that's why I wanted to see the mass as well. That's why I weighed them. And when I did that, here's another way of looking at things. I started to see that the small flakes generally outweighed the large flakes of each type of raw material, except for andesite, which is kind of like, if you do a trend line, it's kind of like, they kind of balance out like that. But for the other rocks, there were a lot more small flakes, both in number and in weight, than the large rocks. You following so far? Good, because there's going to be more charts later. Besides just counting and weighing and sorting them by raw material, I also proceeded to measure them. And so we have here size group, cm, and here weight. So you can see in grams. So you can see that large flakes down here and small flakes up here. So you can imagine like piles and piles of small flakes and a few large flakes here and there. And in the rare types, few or to none large flakes at all. Okay? Moreover, I also looked at the cores. I have to explain what a core is. So a core is the main rock that you are hitting in order for the flake to come out. So here's the core, this is my hammerstone, and when I hit the rock, the flake comes out. So this is the flake, this is the core. Got it? All right. So if I compare the sizes of the cores, we can see here that the dominant raw materials, the common ones, they left behind large cores. But the smaller ones, the rarer ones left behind small cores. Sinulit nila. Patty, what's your favorite food? Cookies. What's your least favorite food? Okay. What's seafood? Seafood. Okay. Imagine you had seafood every day. And then one day somebody gives you a cookie, just a small cookie. Are you going to finish that cookie or not? You're going to finish it. So that's what they did here as well. So all these common raw materials, they're just kind of like, nakakaumay, all right, tapon na yan. But these ones, talagang sinulit nila. The rare types, they really reduce them to really small cores to get the most out of them. Okay? That's one way of looking at it. So, already something starts to emerge. I asked questions. Do we want what we cannot have? Joke lang. So I seem to see a kind of law of supply and demand going on here, where the rarer ones are more valuable and the abundant ones are less desired. Maybe. It's just questions. But I had to know. I just had to know, right? So I went on an adventure back in 2015 during Mandy's Kalau excavation. And I actually tried to look for those rocks myself. I wanted to copy them. I wanted to figure it out, right? And sure enough, when I went, I walked along the Pinakanawan River, which is the nearest source from the Ime Cave, where you find many different kinds of rocks washed up, eroded on the riverbeds. And sure enough, you could find an abundance of those raw materials that were abundant at Ime Cave, and these three rocks were very hard to find. In fact, I couldn't find them. I had to get help from other people. Two people who lived in the area and knew the area well, and another one who had researched the area beforehand and happened to have it and donated it to me. Okay? And then I went to work right away. I tried to make my own stone tools. I tried to copy what they did. So here's the andesite core at Ime Cave, and I tried to copy it. All right? I did it for all raw material types. For some reason, I don't have a photo of the sixth one, wala ata. But here are the different raw materials, the brown, the red, the black chert, basalt and andesite, and I tried to make my own stools. Stools? Stools. Tools. Stone tools. Not stools, but stools are great. Oh, those stools. And here's what I discovered. What I discovered is secret. Yeah, it's too much to explain for this short talk. But let me give you a couple of examples. Some striking examples. So this is size and weight again. So the bigger flakes here, the smaller flakes here, and how much they pile up in terms of weight. Got it? Okay, so comparing the andesite flakes, here we have the flakes at Ime Cave. Wow, ang dami. Here we have the flakes from what I made, all accounted for. And that's just from one stone. I kept it strictly one stone, each raw material type, so I can get an idea how much they were producing or working at the cave. Okay? So for the andesite, obviously, they were doing way more than me. If I had to repeat my experiment to match the amount of flakes that they left behind, especially the small ones, I would have had to repeat myself over and over and over again. Or I could clone myself and then like many times over to reach that level. Whereas the brown flakes, for example, you see a somewhat similar, we call it signature, left behind. It's just that at Ime Cave, the large flakes were missing. So it's kind of like they produced the same amount of trash as me, and since I only worked on one nodule, perhaps they just worked on one nodule themselves as well. Perhaps they were having trouble looking for that brown shirt like me. And when they found it, or they were like, ooh, and then they worked at it inside the cave. It's just that the large flake was missing, and it could be that they just simply kept that large flake because it was too valuable, and they brought it wherever they went. And they didn't just throw it away or leave it behind. Okay? So I did that for all the 6 types of raw material, and it was like, boom! Like, I was enlightened. No, really, I was just able to reconstruct their daily lives better, with more detail. I was able to reconstruct Le Chaînon Patois of those small flakes and it starts with getting rocks at the river and then ends with making, using, and discarding of flakes inside the cave at Ime Cave. So I don't know if you can see, but you have here a diorama of people using flakes, for example, to process plants, sharpen a stick. You have people using flakes to process meat, maybe butchering animal that they hunted. And we know this from use-wear studies that Mandy did. All that was left to study were the pieces of trash that were left behind. And that's what I was able to contribute to within this operational chain. Okay? Because of what I was able to do, going around looking for my own rocks and counting and weighing and all that, sorting, I was able to understand the quote-unquote trash a bit better. So to conclude, Ime Cave was a seasonal hunting campsite. Ime Cave was a small-scale lithic workshop. Ime Cave was also a discard area. But Ime Cave could have also been a cache for storing flakes for future use, depending on the raw material. And that made the andesite flakes made me think about that, because a lot of large usable flakes were still left behind. Maybe, maybe not. Or maybe they expanded their definition of trash to say, ang dami namang andesite flakes, so tapo na yan, even though perfectly okay pa siya. Who knows, right? In any case, this study has definitely caused me to reevaluate how we think about space and how we think about trash, especially for hunter-gatherers in the past. For example, this is their dining area, their throwaway area, their workshop. It can all be in one space. Why not? Right? Other conclusions, the flakes that were studied reflect what stone tools were available in the area, almost like a direct reflection. Okay? But more subtly, there may have been a preference or a value system, hierarchy of value going on there, wherein there was a preference for rarer types of rocks. And thus, we have snippets or slices of life of everyday lives of people 4,000 years ago, around the time when farmers started arriving into the Philippines. So 4,000 years ago, before and even during the coming of the first farmers in the Philippines, foragers knew the land very well, down to the very stones. This was seen in the way they selected, managed, treated, and utilized their resources as well as the terrain, including the cave itself. And the little flakes at Ime Cave demonstrated that they knew how to work with and maximize the properties of each raw material. Thank you so much for listening.
All right, thank you, Dante, for that wonderful talk. We will now open the floor to any questions for Dante. Please raise your hand and I'll pass you the mic. Anyone? Magtanong na kayo, guys. Anyone? We're opening the floor to questions. May questions po kayo?
Thank you very much. It's on. Thank you very much, Dante. It was an excellent talk, as always. I was wondering, could you share with us how different it felt to map the radiolarian chert, the red jasper, and the andesite?
How difficult?
How different?
How different?
When it comes to the feeling that you had.
Super different. I actually discussed this at great lengths in my thesis, but I didn't have time to discuss it here. What's a good analogy? Have you ever ridden a really old bicycle?
Yes.
You know how it feels, right? Kind of grindy. And then you buy a new bicycle. And you ride that new bicycle. Can you imagine how that feels? That's the difference. So let me explain. Nappers knew what they were doing because this andesite is very difficult. It's very tough to crack. And I was only able to get it like that big, but the tool makers there were able to really make it smaller, and that shows their skill, right? But to answer your question, this, I had no problems cutting it down to like size. And the flakes that came out with from the red jasper and the brown jasper cut me. Pero ito, parang nakikiliti lang ako. This one actually felt good. It was nice and coarse and parang namamasahe ako. Meaning to say, these were very brittle and sharp and they obeyed your strike. When you hit it, it usually comes out the way you want it. Oh, actually this one. Not so much this one actually, because this one has inclusions, as you can see. But these ones, especially the brown shirt, it really comes out the way you want it when you strike it. But this one, you strike it and it's like, you have to strike it again and then, and then you have to super saiyan and then strike it really hard until you can, like 3 times before you really get a good flake to come out. So this also shows the strength of these people as well. So to answer your question, these rarer types of raw materials are so much easier and they produce flakes of much better quality. They're very sharp. They can really cut. But these more abundant raw materials, they're rather blunt and coarse, and they're difficult to work with. Does that answer your question? Any other
Okay.
questions?
Any more questions? Anyone? Yes po.
I would like to ask lang kasi sorry. Ako okay lang ba mo Tagalog?
Sure, sure.
Ayan kasi parang kasi nga just to explain, I am a geography major student. So I find it interesting that there's a social spatial implication of a trash cave, of a trash dump, or if not trash dump, a treasure hoard in a hunter-gatherer society na I guess for me the implications of a cave means it's secure rather than it being in the open. So my question here is that what would be the socio-spatial implications of a trash cave? Does it imply a geographical organization of that society? Kumbaga, would there be a designated place for this, and that?
It depends. So, again, this study, if anything, blurred the lines between what is a trash and a treasure and, discard cave. But if you read Mandy's work, you will see that the caves have various degrees of lithic artifacts, the various densities of lithic artifacts left in different caves. So I would say that, I guess it's safe to say that some caves would be more like workshop type than other caves. And some caves would be more like kill or hunting camps more than other caves. But the way hunter-gatherers really move, they're very mobile people, and it really depends on where that cave is situated and the animals moving around and the resources available, and not to mention the climate changing and all these things, the seasons. So there are a lot of factors to take in. But to answer your question, I suppose, yes, there is a sort of pattern depending on where the cave is, and sometimes there might be a function more than others. But I would be careful to fall into the trap of boxing these caves like with a specific function or specific, because they really blend into each other. Especially if you're a mobile group of hunter-gatherers moving around. It's very different from sedentary or settled people that, the kind of trash and the amounts of trash that they leave behind, it's very different. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else? Any questions?
Thank you very much. So you studied the waste, basically. Were there any larger tools that were found at the cave as well?
Yes, for andesite. That's why it made me think, why would they throw it away? So, as mentioned, it could be for two reasons. Either there was so much andesite that they don't care, that they just leave it behind. Even large flakes, perfectly usable flakes. Another reason is the alternative hypothesis that it could be for storage for future use. Why not? Maybe there was no clear-cut distinction between these, where they throw the stuff away. Babalikan ko yun mamaya. It's the same, right? It's only us modern people that's maybe. So yes, there are larger usable flake blanks. If you want to know if they're used tools, better ask Mandy. But he did do use wear on them.
But did you study them?
I did not. That was out of scope. Oh yeah, so that means there may have been also some used tools that they just discarded after using it.
Any more questions? Anyone? Okay, if there are no further questions, we can end today's BINALOT talk. For next week's BINALOT talk, we will have Miss Tenten Mina of the Ayala Museum, and she is also currently a master's student here at UPSA. So thank you, everyone. Ano ba? May Zumba session mamaya at 5:15 in the lobby. So, thank you everyone.
Yan, may
Goodbye.
klase ako eh. Thank you everyone. Okay na ba? May mani ba? Thanks, Gabby. Thanks for everything.